Hey guys, welcome back to another power packed YouTube live session presented by ScoreLeap. For those of you who don't know, ScoreLeap is an edtech company that provides access to higher education to universities across the globe. Our platform's comprehensive end to end service includes counseling throughout the application process, as well as test preparation services for GMAT, GRE, and SAT. The mentors at ScoreLeap help the students build scholarship winning essays and guide them through the entire process. I am Manu Shah, your host for the day. So let's dive right into the session Schulich School of Business, York University, an investment in your future. The Schulich School of Business, the Business School of York University, has some of the most renowned management programs in the world. It has highly distinguished faculties and an eminent alumni network. Today we have Mr. Aditya Narasimhan with us, who will help us understand what it takes to earn admit and scholarship from this top school and what kind of opportunities Schulich has to offer. Mr. Aditya is currently pursuing his master's in business administration from Schulich School of Business, York University. Having graduated from Christ University in Bachelor's of Business Administration, Aditya has an illustrious work experience of almost 7 years at Goldman Sachs, among other companies. Currently, Aditya is also a CFA Level 3 candidate. He has had a diversified work profile ranging from myriad divisions like consumer and investment management to loan portfolio and even private wealth management division. Mr. Aditya's cross-functional experience in business operations, analytics, and structured finance in the financial domain has given an impetus to his career trajectory. So, hey Aditya, how are you? Hope you're doing well.
I'm all good, Manoj. Thank you for the introduction. I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine as well. Thank you so much for joining us today. So, well, before we get started, I would like to announce that we'll be opening the floor for question and answer during the last 15 minutes of this session.
Sure.
So audience, please feel free to drop in your queries in the chat section. We will
Sure.
address them all based on the availability of the time. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for exciting updates on more such events. So can we start, Aditya?
Yeah, absolutely.
So well, let's begin from the beginning. So at what stage in your life did you realize that you wanted to pursue MBA, and how did your roadmap look like to achieve it?
Um, the decision to do an MBA was something that was ingrained in me for quite some time. So ever since I completed my bachelor's, I knew that in order for me to progress to the kind of roles that I wanted, which was primarily more around client-facing roles in the financial domains, which could be either in the investment banking side or on the wealth management side, asset management or corporate banking. It's sort of there is a there's an industry standard that an MBA is sort of a must. So I started thinking about MBA back in 2017. That's when I think I had cleared my CFA level 2 exam. I had completed almost 3 years at Goldman, and I was trying to figure out what's the next path ahead. So initially, my eyes were set on Indian business schools. I was thinking of either going to, the IIM or the ISB, and I was planning to sort of stay in India at that point of time. So started my GMAT journey, started planning out as to how to go about doing different things. But life sort of happens, and at Goldman itself, I got an opportunity to have a bit of my own team where I was like an internal consultant, helping optimize different processes across the flow. So it was called business intelligence. So I was a BI specialist. I was given that opportunity, and I did that for like close to 2.5 years. And while I was doing that, I was also contemplating, okay, where should I go do my MBA? While I was working there, I realized that the global exposure is very important for my career growth. And while Indian business schools are pretty great and they have great faculty, the sort of global exposure that I was craving for could not happen in India alone. So I had to sort of look out. So I started slowly looking at, Singapore. I started looking at European business schools, UK business schools, and American business schools. This was around 2019, and that's when I started my journey with School Leap. I met Kalyan, and then we started discussing my profile right away. And we decided that, Canada is one place that fits my both my career objectives and my personal objectives, and it made sense for me to sort of go there. So that's how it started working on the application. I got through a couple of B schools. I chose Schulich, and now here I am.
Thank you so much for those great insights. I'm pretty sure a lot of candidates can also resonate with your journey. So moving on, as you said that you looked for other universities. So what would you recommend to the viewers who are currently in the process of shortlisting the universities for the MBA? So what are the factors do you think that they need to keep in mind while selecting these universities?
No, absolutely. I think this is an age-old question, and for every person, the answer is going to change, right? So I think it's very important to first define what are your career goals and what are your personal goals. And both of them need to be in sync before you decide to be in a particular place. To give a personal anecdote, I had gotten through Smith School of Business too at Queen's University, and I had an admission from Schulich School of Business at York University. So my case was a little different because I had gotten admission into these programs back in 2020 itself. But then pandemic happened, and again, I was doing a pretty good role at Goldman, and that's when I had moved into structured finance. So I decided to defer my admission intake by a year. So around that time, I realized that in order for me to fully be able to, get the required Canadian experience and also at the same time be safe enough that I don't have to come back to India if my work permit or something expires, I chose to go with Schulich because they have a 2-year program. And for those of you who don't know this, but then in Canada, if your program length is more than a year, like if it's a 2-year program, you get a 3-year work permit. And that is a very big consideration, especially for international students, because PR process can be lengthy, right? So I had to weigh pros and cons. I had to look at different things, but that was on my side. But typically, as I said, if you want to proceed into a particular career, you need to first of all understand which business school can give you the required exposure. So in Canada, some of the top business schools are your Schulich School of Business, your Ivy, which is in London, Ontario, from Western University. Then you have a Smith School of Business at Queen's University. You have Rotman School of Business from University of Toronto. You also have the Groot School of Business from McMaster University. And then there is another university which is not that well known, but equally good, Ted Rogers Business School from Toronto Metropolitan University, formerly known as Ryerson University. So these are some of the 6 business schools which are there in the Ontario region who provide pretty decent amount of exposure to different areas. Now, each of these business school specialize in very particular, like some aspect of business management. For instance, Schulich is known for its marketing, real estate, and finance. UFT or Rotman is known more specifically for its finance and consulting. Western again or Ivy Business School is known for finance and consulting. So based on which kind of career you want to go in, you pick that up. You pick the business school up, right? So that's how you first look at it. Second aspect, as I said, would be your personal aspiration and personal goals. Does the way the school function, does that align with your ethos? So you go speak to different alums, you go speak to professors, you go speak to the admission consultants, and you understand how the culture is. From what I've understood, more or less all the particular B schools, they are pretty much the same because the cohort representation is more or less the same, so you will get the same kind of exposure. So that is one good thing about Canada, is you do have a, a real actual blend of different cultures melting here in one city. So that's one pretty great thing. So once you have decided how your personal goals are also aligned with the business school, you start working on shortlisting them. You start working on seeing what companies do typically, have recruited from the school, and then you go about applying to these business schools. So that's the typical way of doing things, and that's what I did too.
Yeah, thank you so much for that detailed answer. I'm sure the audience now knows what factors to look into. So let's get this right. You are a Christ University alumni, you are a level 3 CFA candidate, and you've also worked with Goldman Sachs for 7 years, among other feathers in your hat. So I'm pretty sure you've also worked on building your profile for your MBA program. So, what
Yeah.
suggestions do you have for candidates with respect to building one's profile for an MBA at their dream university abroad?
So there are different, again, I mean, there is no one set rule of building a profile, but the rule is pretty simple, that you cannot be just doing one thing. So if you are good at academics, that's great. I was not good at academics. I really suck at academics. So I had to sort of overcome that by working on my CFA, working on my GMAT score, to show that, what, academically I'm strong enough to sort of stand the rigor that an MBA would require. So academics, make sure that those are good. So if your academics are average like mine, you would want to start focusing a bit more on your GMAT and ensuring that you achieve a decent score. Now, what is a decent score will change from business school to business school. So typically, the way I would say is, as long as you are at least 30 points above the school average, you should be good, right? This is for the Indian diaspora, because given the intense competition we have, you would want to make sure that your GMAT sort of stands out. So you first make sure your academics are fine. And that is a process that will happen over time. It's not something you will, I don't know, some people spend 3 months, some people spend few weeks, some people spend a couple of years, but then the process is different for everyone. So you need to learn to be patient about taking competitive exams. And the sooner you decide, the better it is, and the better you'll be able to understand. That's first point. Get your academics in line. Second thing would be your work. Right now, work is subjective. Again, it will change for different people. So for me at Goldman, I was really enjoying what I was doing at every point in time. But then I was also cognizant of the fact that if I felt I have hit a wall, or I don't feel challenged anymore, I was immediately on the look for the next opportunity. And that's why I've had like three big role changes at Goldman itself in the gaps of 2 to 3 years. So that sort of shows some level of career progression. So I'd recommend, at least spending 2, 3, or 4 years at least working before you start to do an MBA, because that gives one ample amount of time to build a decent profile, right? You can show that you have progressed in your career. You can show that you have taken different initiatives in your career, and that's how you move forward. For instance, for me, the biggest initiative that I took apart from the work that I was doing was, I was a part of my firm's Toastmasters Club, where I helped different people in the organization sort of overcome their fear of public speaking. And over time, it became so good that, we received something called as a um, People and Leadership Development Award, which is something great. And then that was really something that stood out for me, showing that, what, apart from the crazy amount of work that I do, and the CFA that I was working on, I was also working with the people in my firm to help them progress towards their own career goals. So by showcasing these sort of things, it really helps to show that the candidate is not just someone who understands things academically, but on a leadership level is also able to deliver. So this is how my profile looked like, but then not everyone's profile will look the same, right? There might be someone who would be probably, working with a nonprofit organization, which I think is pretty great. And I did that too. Like on the weekends, I was volunteering as a data analyst for not-for-profit organizations where I was helping them, help them with their data needs. So that was again something where I was using my own skill set for the good of the community. And doing these things, they really add up, right? It's not something that you do it once, but if you do it over a period of time, that helps you a lot. So one is you have your work, and then you have a bunch of extracurricular. For some other people that I know, they would participate in different sports, and they didn't stop, practicing those sports after they have graduated. So they would be representing either their state or their nation in different, fields. So things like that, they of course go really well with adcoms at different business schools, because what they see is pretty simple, that what, this person is an all-rounder, and it is better to be an all-rounder, especially if you are applying to a program like MBA, than be like a specialist, because MBA is all about understanding different aspects of management from different angles, and then you choose at one line where you want to go in, right? So that's how the MBA functions. It's important to build your profile in that essence.
Thank you for that answer. I do agree that diversifying your work profile, your interests, and also taking initiatives is extremely essential to building your profile. So moving on to your life at Schulich, so how would you describe your peer group at Schulich?
So my peer group is quite mixed. Starting with something basic demographics, it's a mix of students from different countries from across the globe. I mean, there is not one place. We have a lot of students from the Asia as a whole continent. So we have students from People's Republic of China. We have students from Taiwan. We have students from India, Bangladesh, Pakistan. Then we have a couple of European students. We have students from Latin America, students from United States, Canada itself. So it's like a huge, big melting pot. And yeah, so that's my how the demographic looks like. The age range is anywhere between 25 to 35. In fact, there are some even older candidates than that. So, that shows the amount of just the diverse amount of experience that people come with. And we have we have different clubs at school. Like any business school, there are different clubs dedicated to each particular career path. I personally am involved with the Schulich Finance Association, which is our club. They have different clubs for consulting, for marketing, supply chain, for real estate. I mean, you name it, and there's a club. So, the school really sort of focuses on ensuring that, students, when they come in, they have the opportunity to join any of these clubs, because the idea is that when you join these clubs, the clubs does various activities which exposes you to that industry, and when you get exposed to that industry, you get to understand it better, and from there you can sort of build your own career path. So that is something the school does. Apart from that, the school is I mean, academically it's pretty rigorous. You have, like, the way it is structured is, you have your first year um, MBA, where a lot of the things are pretty much set in stone. And it's the second year where you get, the creative idea to take the courses that you want and build your career from there. So for me, again, giving an example, I had the opportunity to do an internship at CIBC. It was one of the banks that I was aiming at, and the role I was in was that of something called as a GLDP summer associate. So Canada, and rather a lot of other banks, they have something called as leadership programs, where essentially you have your master students, come there and rotate in different teams for a period of 6 months. And after a year or two, you get to sort of pick one team and stick with them. So that way you get to really explore the bank at the same time, You get to explore your own interest areas. So it's a brilliant way to build out your career. So there are different leadership programs, and all these banks come to school. So you can just imagine the amount of buzz that creates and the amount of competition that creates. So that sort of also helps you in growing and building your profile by participating in all these, competitive applications. Um, but anyway, coming back to my point earlier, so in my second year, you have the option of choosing different subjects, and in my what I the way I decided to do my second year was having my third semester, that is the semester before this, the fall semester, load up pretty heavily on academics. Where I had like six subjects amounting to 18 credits. It was pretty difficult. But in my fourth semester, I am doing a second internship through my school again. So the school gives you another opportunity to basically work with a small startup, like basically a private equity or a venture capital firm. Let me not call it a small startup, because it's a pretty interesting course that Schulich has designed, where they select around 30 to 40 students from the existing cohort, and they place them with different venture capital firms or startups, and you basically do an internship, and the internship involves doing exactly what a VC firm would do, going around seeing if a startup is good enough to invest. If it's good enough to invest, you talk to the founder, you work on the pitch, so on and so forth. So it's a pretty cool thing, and I'm doing that. So opportunities like that are something that Schulich gives, which is pretty great. And a lot of students, like I know personally, a lot of people who have done these things and landed pretty decent, amazing roles through it. And it's really cool to sort of have access to that alum network, right? So these alumni, they keep on coming back to school, they talk to you about different things. And just by the virtue of being connected to the school, you have access to a massive, massive, massive alum network, and you get to talk to them. And even the professors who come to teach at the school, they also, a lot of the adjunct professors, they work at different banks, different companies. In fact, one of the partners at EY Parthenon is the professor of mergers and acquisitions at Schulich. So his course is pretty popular. It's difficult to get in, but then that's the kind of exposure you get in. And when you are talking to people in the industry who come with such high accolades, it gets pretty daunting. But at the same time, you do get to learn a lot, and you do get to sort of really flex your creative muscle by trying to understand and gain as much as possible from them. So there's just like the opportunities are never ending. Let me close it at that.
No, that's really great. Those are some amazing opportunities. So, though you partially answered this, but then I would still want you to, run us down your typical day at Schulich. So, when does it start? How does it look? Very hectic? Or...
Okay. So my typical day has changed literally every month at Schulich. So let me start with how it would look like in the first year, because second year, again, as I said, will be different for everyone. My first year, the typical day was pretty straightforward. You get to, before you start your school, you get to sort of select your classes. I mean, your subjects are pretty much defined, but you do have a bit of an option in selecting some of the professors you would want to go with. So you see which schedule works the best for you. For some people, it's the morning schedule works the best for them. For some, it's the evening schedule. Mine was a mix of morning and evening both. So in my first year, I was staying on campus. Um, so that made it a little easy for me to go from, campus to school. So day started pretty early for me. I'd like to wake up at before 8 at least, and then go get in a quick workout session. Um, some of my classes would start at 8:30, so I would quickly go join the classes at 8:30. Classes would last anywhere for a duration of 2.5 to 3 hours. So if the class started at 8:30, it will get done at 11:30. In between, we would get like a 10-minute break, And class again could be, some classes would be pretty intense, some would be not so intense. So the classes would typically would look like, professor would have given us prior readings to work on. We would have to go do those readings, and in the class we'll have a discussion on those. So there are some interesting classes that we had. Like one that we had was called Skills for Leadership, which is one of the mandatory courses at Schulich. It's a pretty interesting course focused entirely on problem solving, and that's how your first semester starts. So in this course, we had to literally work on different use cases. We had to build on different case studies, and there was a lot of intense discussion that would happen in the class, not just with the professor, but even with your cohort. So having those really engaging discussions, helped in expanding your mind horizon. So that's how my day would start. And then, either if I have some time, I'll go back home, have my lunch, or go with a couple of my colleagues to a restaurant nearby, catch up some food, uh, come back. It's like we would either have other class in the evening, and evening classes start at around 7, they go till 10, or you have some classes that start at 6, they go till 9. So it depends on professor, when the classes would start, but your last class would be usually at 7. So my first semester had more of morning classes, my second semester had a bit of evening classes, my third and fourth semester now have a lot of evening and night classes. So night classes is when some of the more specialist teachers come, because they will also be working. So it's pretty interesting to go to these classes, because then you also have your part-time MBA students. So these are the students who are currently working, and having to listen to their perspective when they are working is pretty interesting. And then you also get to expand on your network, right? So yeah, that's how my day would look like. And yeah, another thing I forgot to say. So in Schulich MBA, your first year, as I said, is pretty much defined. In the second year, you need to do something pretty crazy too. You need to work on a strategy consulting project. So strategy consulting project is essentially where you need to work on getting a client. So you would be representing Schulich School of Business, and Schulich will give you a list of pre-approved client sites. So these are different companies to whom you would approach and say that, hey, I want to help you with a strategy problem. And then you work with them for a period of 8 months. And this is an actual strategy project where you will be having daily discussions with the senior management of the firm. Personally, I am right now working with a kids media company. And it's pretty interesting because I have never in my life ever been exposed to media. I mean, they're after kids media, right? So getting that level of diverse exposure, that is something, it's sort of a once in a lifetime experience that the school enables that for you. And that is another, I mean, I don't want to call it a stressful thing, because it is something that you learn, but MBA is supposed to be a bit stressful, where there are different things happening, and you need to really prioritize where you would want to go. And that's how the typical day would look like. But then there is another aspect to this day which I did not speak, which are the case competitions. Now, case competitions are literally the bread and butter of business school, and it's I won't say it's mandatory, but it would be really good to partake in these competitions, because you get to again work with real life cases where you will be like, having different companies come and give their problem statements, and you need to work on solving those problems. And these are not small companies. Let me start with that. I don't want to go ahead and name the companies for now, but these companies are pretty decent big size MNCs who would come and give you a particular case. You get to work on them, and solving or winning the case would mean exposure to the senior leadership at that firm, which would mean again, a gate open to multiple opportunities. So while students are studying, they also partake in case competitions and different clubs. And clubs also have case competitions. And then amidst all this, You have something called as the Graduate Business Council, which basically is the student council for the graduate students. And there are again elections and all those things happening. So it's like a never a dull moment, to be very frank. Something or the other is constantly happening, and it's difficult to sometimes choose and be like, okay, I want to do this. Okay, I want to do that. Okay, I want to do this. I want to go to this networking event. I want to do this. I want to go participate in this competition. And then if you don't prioritize and if you don't explore and if you do not, do your research, it can get pretty overwhelming. But if you know exactly how to go about doing these things, you research, you speak to alum, you network, you will be fine. So that's a very long-winded to the answer, saying that how a typical day looks like. But that's how it looks like. It's literally all over the place.
Wow, that sounds pretty exciting to hear all the opportunities that are there. So going to my next question, so can you walk us through, so Schulich School of Business is known for its Center for Career Design and an in-house team of certified career coaches and industry advisors. So could you talk more about that and how it helps the MBA candidates?
So CCD, or the Center for Career Design, is our career department, and every school has it. My I just have a very simple advice for everyone who sort of comes to any of these business schools is to engage with your career center early on, right? Career center exists to assist students. I'm not saying here that they are going to help students get a job. They assist students in understanding how to go about getting a job. There are two very different things, right? Because um, I think in India, the career centers, they work extensively on bringing companies to the campus. Here, companies do come to the campus again, but it's more student driven. The opportunities are more student driven. You are not limited to apply to the companies that come to the school. You have endless opportunities. You can go talk to anyone, but it is how you engage with the career center. So the way CCD is set up is, they do different sessions throughout the year. They have weekly Q&A where you can go in and ask very specific questions on how to go about building your resume, how to go about building your cover letter. So of course, the importance in Canada of a cover letter is pretty high, because uh, your resume can only say so much, but cover letter is what exactly can, talk about your soul, and say, what, these are some of the reasons why I think I'm a fit for the company and how I can grow my career. And these questions cannot be answered just for resume alone. So in Canada, there is a massive emphasis on cover letter, and school definitely helps you in building that. So idea is for this department to go and contact different companies and build resume books. So resume books are basically where they get resumes of interested candidates and pass them on to different companies. They then work on having networking mixers where basically they call different companies to campus, or they will, hold an event where different companies would come, and you as a student would have the opportunity to go and talk to them and network with them, and then see if that particular company and team is a good fit for you. So amidst all this, you need to of course have those level of discussion with the career center, and they have, as you rightly called out, Manoj, they have different industry experts from each particular field. So they have someone who is from consulting, they have someone who's from finance, they have someone who's from marketing, and then you go and talk to them and you speak a little detailed about your profile. They will either put you in touch with an alum, or they will put you in touch with someone who's currently in the industry, and then you have to take it from there. It's a lot of it, as I mentioned, is self-driven. So if you want a particular job, you would want to do the things to get that particular job. To give you an example, say you are aiming at getting into BCG, right? As a consultant, you want to get there, and that is something you want to do. So early on, you would want to, before sort of coming to the school, you would have done your research and you join Schulich. The first thing you will do is contact the career center and say like, hey, my goal is to become a consultant at BCG. They'll be like, fine, you need to, start working on a cover letter, start working on casing. So case interviews are a very, very big factor in consulting companies. So, Schulich, of course, have different sessions on understanding how to crack the case interview. Plus, they have case competitions. So when you do case competitions, you work on understanding case interviews, and you also practice on your own casing approach. That really helps on building that particular muscle, the consulting muscle. And you do it over a period of time, say over a year, you continue networking. And when the opportunity comes to apply, you apply, and then you would have prepared for it, you continue doing all these things, and then there is no reason for you to to not get in. Of course, it's competitive, so you would want to put in as much effort as possible. So that's how a typical consulting approach would look like. In my case, like a finance approach would be, say, if I had to get into investment banking, I would want to make sure I understand financial modeling from the beginning right on. I go talk to Center of Career Design again and tell them that, listen, I want to be an investment banker. So who do I go and speak to? They will put me in touch with these people, and I'll go talk to them. And again, participate in any finance competitions, participate in any finance networking events, participate wherever the bank comes, and then you go and apply and you build out. So that's how these things would look like. The CCD will help you in assisting in telling you how to go about doing these things, but a lot of these things are at the end of the day self-driven.
Thank you for those great insights. So moving on, one of the main factors while selecting our MBA program is also looking at the cost of living and other expenses, right? So could you talk more about the cost of living and other expenses that one needs to keep in mind while selecting Canada for the MBA program?
Uh, okay, so Canada is an expensive country. Let me start with that. Toronto is an expensive city, so it is paramount that you really know how much you're going to spend here. So when you decide, there is the factor of the MBA admission fees, and then there is a factor of the cost of living. Now, depending on your own lifestyle, you can either increase or decrease that cost. Personally, I know people who stay on the campus with a budget of 1,400 Canadian dollars. And I also know people who stay on the budget of 2,000 Canadian dollars or more, right? Uh, so it ranges from person to person. But that doesn't mean that you cannot afford staying here, and there are not opportunities to sort of make living for yourself more affordable. So if you come as a student, there is literally no way you can, of course, start earning. By the way, let me just clarify right now, I am not staying in student accommodation. This is not how student accommodation looks like. I stayed like in downtown Toronto with my wife, and my wife works, she earns. So that's why the house looks a little different. But the campus accommodation looks very different than this. Okay, let me just put that disclaimer right away. There are not this big walls there. Uh, but coming back on the cost of living again, what I would recommend to understand the best way of cost of living is, when you apply, try 100% to get a scholarship. But again, scholarship comes, doesn't come, it's different for everyone. But don't worry and think that, how will I be able to afford my expenses here? Because once you land in Canada, once you are a student here, you get different opportunities to do so many things to just make up for that money. So I can at least say that, a person working minimum wage for at least 20 hours can make a little above $1,000 easily, right? So that $1,000 can really complement on your living expenses. That combined with something called as a GIC, which many students do. I did not do it, but GIC also, I think if I'm not wrong, gives you around $600 every month or something. So 1,000 plus 600, 1,600, that is more than enough for you to survive on campus being a student, right? Because of course you will not be, having your own sort of a unit. You will be sharing it, which is what many students do. But it's that's how sort of, the student living is. You sort of have a shared accommodation. And when you do your internship, you will get to earn more, right? You will get to save on that money. And plus, during the school year, there are many other scholarship opportunities that you get to participate in that can really sort of bring down your expenses. And over time, you will find other venues through school itself where you can help the school in doing different things. So like, you can be an invigilator, or you can work with the school on some things. You can be on campus and work, and those things, they also like pay you pretty well. Like you can just decide to work as a receptionist during your off hours, and if you're doing that, you just sit on a desk, do the work, and do your assignments, and then just get the money. So like there are like a lot of different ways to continue earning that money, and I won't like call it as a massive deterrent like the cost of living in Canada to a student. Yes, your life will be a little limited to the campus for the first 2 years, but then eventually when you get a job after that where you are making 100,000 plus, you won't really you wouldn't really care about that again, because then once you have a good high paying job, you don't have to really worry about anything. Then you just have to worry about, you know, which part of the town to move in, how to go about doing these things. But then the student life, it's pretty affordable, it's pretty accessible, and the different businesses as a whole have a lot of student discounts. So things just get pretty easy.
Thank you so much. So just to reiterate, you said that there are paid opportunities as well on within and around campus, so which keeps you going. So coming to my last question for the day, can you please throw some light on the career opportunities that are open for candidates after the MBA program from Schulich?
There are, as I said, like there are, I mean, you need to sort of like, so any career option that you want, you can literally have that, and there are multiple career opportunities. So as I said, some people like me, I am going through a leadership program where I decide to choose a bank. I applied to the leadership program. I like, for me it was CIBC, and I will be going back there again. And I don't know where I'll exactly decided to start. I haven't decided that yet. But then leadership programs are a great way for an MBA student to start their career. There are different consulting opportunities. You have your big four firms, you have your big strategy firms. You can go there. You have your different banks and different roles in those banks. You can go and apply there. Uh, Supply chain companies, shipping companies, healthcare companies, hospitals. They hire. The hospital hires, like their administrators from Schulich a lot. Personally, I know a few of them. And even like you have the opportunity to even work for the government. Like I can't think of one aspect that is not accessible to a Schulich student or any MBA student for that matter. When you do an MBA, the country recognizes that it's an advanced degree, and if you are able to sort of get through the competition, you will get a competitive salary. So it's the career opportunities are endless. Yeah, I mean, right now in this macroeconomic environment, I'd say there is a bit of a slowdown in hiring. Companies are being a little bit more cognizant, but then that is temporary, in my opinion. And as in when things are improving, opportunities are opening up. But these leadership programs and the campus hirings, they don't stop because companies still do need people. So nevertheless, it's not a deterrent. And for students who are right now at least sitting and watching this, they will be graduating anywhere in 2025, 2026. So not a problem for them at all. So it's there are plenty of opportunities.
Wow, that seems incredible. So since we are discussing on this topic, could you talk a little bit about the PR process as well? So I think that would be very helpful for the audience.
Yeah, the Canadian PR process is something that's driven by scores. So if you have a Canadian education that really pushes up your score beyond, you know, like 500 or something. So right now, if I had to look at my scores, I'm 30 years old, and based on my experience and everything, my score is easily 500 plus. So having that Canadian education plus work permit, the PR process becomes extremely easy. And it's not just for me, but even for, say, even if it's an older candidate, for them too, it becomes extremely easy because the PR process really values Canadian education. Okay, your scores really shoot up after that, and the process is pretty straightforward. You build your express entry profile, you wait for something called as an invitation to apply, and when you get the invitation to apply, you need to give a bunch of supported documents which are pretty straightforward. If you look them up, you will know what they are, and the timeline could be 6 months to 18 months, but then it's not a problem because once you get an ITA or the invitation to apply, and even if you are on something called like a 1 year work permit or something, not a problem at all because you can then just extend your work permit. You can extend your permit on the fact that you have a invitation to apply. So all you have to do is sort of come here, complete your education, apply, and then just wait, and then you will be pretty much sorted.
Thank you so much for that detailed answer. So moving on, we'll have a quick question answer session. I'm sure there would be some of the questions in the chat box. Um, right. So one of the questions that has come is regarding the strategy study program that you already mentioned about. So how does that happen? Does that happen in teams or is that an individual program?
I should have clarified it happens in teams. So in your first year of MBA, you will be getting to work with different students, and you can decide from, who do you want to form a team with. So what I did early on, I knew there would be a strategy consulting project. So every team member I worked with, every person I interacted with, I sort of saw who would be the best fit. And like my current strategy consulting team, they are my rock. I'm really proud of them. And when you work with people so closely, you do tend to get pretty close with them. And then, it's pretty amazing. You get to work with a really nice, diverse team. And yeah.
Well, I think that pretty much answers it. Um, so are there any other questions in the chat box? Seeing none, I think we'll call it a day. So thank you so much, Aditya, for this enriching session. All of us, including myself, learned a lot today from this session. And also, audience, if you want ScoLeap to conduct more such events, feel free to drop in which university alumni you want us to have a webinar with. Thank you, ScoLeap, for organizing this session. And finally, thank you, audience, for joining us. You can drop in your
Just one
queries.
more thing, Manush.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, just one more thing. And guys, I mean, like if anyone wants to reach out to me through LinkedIn, please feel free to reach out to me. But just one small humble request. Give me like tell me, that how you got to know me. Even if you don't know me, just say that came across a profile and I want to ask questions about this. Just by giving like that brief 300 note response, 300 character note response on LinkedIn, that's something, get into the habit of doing, because it gives me a bit of background as to what you want to talk to me about, and I'm more likely to respond to someone who sends me that message than someone who just sends me a LinkedIn invite. So please do that. That's going to help. And I think we have a question here. Hi, Aditya. I currently work at EY as a logistics consultant. Can you speak a little more about strategy consulting opportunities in Canada? Hey, so there are a lot of strategy consulting opportunities. So you, of course, you have your big four firms, plus you have your MBB, that's a McKinsey, Bain, and BCG, who have the strategy consulting. Apart from that, you have other strategy consulting firms like Simon Kucher and Partners, who actively recruit in Canada. And I personally know people who have been working in these firms. At the end of the day, it is a factor about how much are you practicing your casing, how many people you are networking with, and how you can build your profile. But if you're already in the consulting background and you want to sort of pivot into strategy consulting, doing an MBA would be the right path ahead, because that really sort of opens your doors and opportunities to these firms.
Thank you so much, Aditya. So I think that's very sweet of you. So I think you can personally connect to him as well. Aditya is also a mentor at school, so feel free to reach out to us as well. Finally, thank you, Scully, for organizing this session. And finally, thank you to the audience for joining with us. You can drop in your queries at info@scoleap.in. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you, Aditya. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful week ahead, everyone.
Yeah, take care. Bye bye.